All right, students, having a little trouble here getting my PowerPoint to run. Come on. All right, so this is going to be page 3 in your notebook, and this is supply. And as I told you yesterday, or today actually, it is now almost 11 o'clock. So I'm even more likely to say something stupid tonight. I think I'm going to do my Euro lecture in the morning. So this is supply. So page 1 in your notebook was Unit 1 notes. Page 2 is demand, 3 is supply. Remember, as I said, supply is quirkier. All right, I don't know what these pictures are. This looks like just generic graphics. I don't even know what they're doing here. All right, supply. Supply defined. Okay, now your big issue coming up is not essays or FRQs. Your big issue coming up is multiple choice. The multiple choice in this course is difficult. Muy difícil. Okay, so here is the definition of supply. Supply is the different qualities of a good that sellers are willing and able. Now this is important. Willing and able. Okay, when people want something, they want it. Like for instance, this is a story I normally tell with demand. My son and I went on a 3-day, 30-mile hiking trip. My son, the video game design geek, he does not want to be away from his video games. And my hobby is camping and getting out in the middle of nowhere. And I talked him into doing this hiking trip with me in Georgia. And it was freezing. It was like, one night it got down to like 12 degrees, which is prime camping weather. And we went on this hike. And I'll never forget, if you guys ever do a 3-day camping trip, as soon as you get back to civilization, you have this craving for fried food. And so I'm not even a big Papa John's fan. I don't hate Papa John's. It's just the pizza's expensive. I'm a Little Caesars Pizza Hut kind of guy. But just before we had gone to Georgia hiking, Papa John's had been running these commercials. And I remember they had some pizza called like the 5 cheese pizza. And the commercials were very well done. And so my son and I have done a couple of these big camping trips where we're out there for 3 or 4 days. And both times, as soon as we get back to the car, we start fantasizing about food. Oh my gosh. We get back in the car after hiking 30 miles. I actually think it was 20 miles. It was a 3-day trip. He could have done it in, 1 or 2 because he was young. I'm the old fat guy. I'm dragging along. But father-son time, this was wonderful. We get back in the car, and we're in the middle of nowhere in Georgia. And we sit down in the car, and all of a sudden we start talking about these pizza ads we saw. And we just immediately start craving this pizza. So we didn't have we had smartphones, but we didn't have good self-service. Because back then, T-Mobile didn't work in half the United States. The half I was always in. And so we had one of those GPSs, that you put up on a Garmin. Some of you don't know. You have these fancy cars, where you have GPSs built in. But we have the kind you plug into your cigarette lighter and put it up there. And so my son, the computer programmer, whatever, I tell him, I'm like, okay, find us the nearest Papa John's. So we are starving. The nearest Papa John's is like 140 miles away. We passed every single restaurant you could imagine on the way. Getting there. Hardee's, Burger King, McDonald's. We passed everything. We passed it all up just because we wanted Papa John's. And this is how quirky demand is. All we did was sit down and start talking about these commercials. And we had to have this Papa John's. And then we got nervous because we weren't going to get to the restaurant till about 10 o'clock at night. And we'd been it took us like 3 hours to get there. And I never will forget, we called ahead to make sure they were going to be open. Because we were so worried that, we would get there at 10:05 and they closed at 10. And I was going to turn into a terrorist or something. I'm kidding, of course. Anyway, we get there and we ordered it. So in time, it just like right when we drove up, the pizza was ready. And I swear that pizza, we got it in the car. It lasted about 37 seconds. And usually when you want something really bad and you get it like that, then you're disappointed. It's like it wasn't that good. It was wonderful. So I just want you to know, demand is quick. Demand comes and goes, right? Supply is quirky. Here's why. Supply is not how much people are willing to buy. Supply is how much the businesses are willing to make. And this is complicated. For instance, let's say people have all of a sudden a huge demand for apple pies. Okay? So much that for some reason, just the demand for apple pies sweeps the United States. The only thing you can really do, we eat all the apples that exist in the United States. Well, the solution is to plant more apple trees. How many years does it take to grow an apple tree? 10 or 15? So suppliers cannot produce this stuff as much as people want. Like, look at this vaccine. We have wanted a vaccine to COVID, and it's pretty interesting. Trump promised us one before the end of the year, and the other side said it can't be done. We did have some out before the end of the year, but now it is the new year, and it's starting to, drib and drab in. But just so you know, supply is not easy. I know that's not a very intellectual term, but it is hard to provide supply. That's why it's quirky. So the supplier's got to be willing to make it and able at different prices. Okay, so what is the law of supply? Now, yesterday with demand, I keep saying yesterday, it was actually today. But anyway, when you see this, it'll have been yesterday. Instead of having you graph something, we're just going to go ahead and give you the definition. And it's the exact opposite. The law of demand is the price of something goes up, people are willing to buy less. As far as supply goes, as the price goes up, people are willing to supply more. Businesses are. So it is not going to have an inverse relationship. Price and quantity are not going to have an inverse relationship. They're going to have a positive relationship. And there you go. Here is, and I'm going to let you write all this stuff down. And I just want to set the record straight here. I can't ever remember if the guy's name is Whitworth or Whitcomb. It's Whitworth. I know it's Whitcomb, right? Anyway, it's one of the others. I've met him. He seems like a really nice guy. I don't know what he taught you, but let me just tell you, there's some confusion amongst some of your AP teachers, maybe, and some of your teachers about what businesses exist for. I haven't given you my educational background yet. I should have given you my biography the first day of school. I have a degree in accounting. When you go to college, most majors are 30 hours. That means you take 10 classes. So if you go get a double major in psychology and sociology, you take 30 hours of psychology and 30 hours of sociology. And you have a degree that never mind, I'm going to leave that alone. So the deal is, I have a degree in accounting. I have 30 hours of accounting and 30 hours of business. So I basically have a double major. It just says accounting. But I have a full business administration degree and a full accounting degree. And here's what they teach you in business school. Businesses are there to make money. They're there to make a profit. They are not there to make the environment a better place. They're not there to necessarily make the world a better place. Although, if they can sell a product that is good for the environment or good for the world, they're going to make a lot of money. So it's good if they do something good, but their main goal is to make a profit. That's why they're there. They're not there to make you feel good about yourself or anything like that. Okay? I'm not saying some businesses don't try to do that. They're there to make a profit. So let there be no confusion about that. There's three things. Remember, I was an accountant for a company. We're trained to run people's books. That's what my degree is in. And there's three words they teach you in business school. Maximize shareholder wealth. Three things. Make as much money as you can for the owners of your company. And that's what you see down there at the bottom. Why would suppliers make more when the price goes up? Because they make more money. Case closed. End of discussion. This is common sense. I haven't given you guys a lot of my philosophy yet. But my philosophy is, if you want to be poor, you will be successful. There's a lot of poor people. If you want to make no money, you will be successful. I'm hoping most of you want to be successful. If you want to help poor people, my advice, make a whole bunch of money and give it away. My advice would be, don't be in such a rush to take away somebody else's money. Make your own, give your own away. That's just my philosophy. If you want to be offended, go for it. All right. Example, mowing lawns. Okay, so this is going to be kind of crazy here. I'm going to use this example, okay? And I use silly examples, by the way. Wait till we get into essays. I'm going to give you some of the dumbest essays you've ever heard of in your life, okay? But let's think of mowing lawns. And the reason I use mowing lawns as an example is because I knew this guy who wanted to be a preacher. We went to church together. He wanted to be a pastor of a church. And he worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he was regional manager. At like age 23, he was regional manager. He's one of the hardest working people I've ever met. And so by regional manager, what that means is he's in charge of like 10 different Kentucky Fried Chickens. The problem is he wants to be a preacher. He wants to be in church Wednesday night and Sunday morning. And when you work for KFC, you got to work Wednesday night and Sunday morning. So he decided he was going to go to Bible school. And in the meantime, he was going to quit his job. So he started his own lawn service. By the way, if any of you want to make a lot of money, there are a lot of people out there, I'm not going to say they're millionaires, who make money mowing lawns. And he told us the story. It's kind of funny. This guy's name was Bush. Dave Bush was his name. And what he did was he made a 3x5 card. He was broke. And it said lawns cut, lawn cut $15, hedge trim. I'm making these numbers up. He made these little 3x5 cards, and he started passing them around to all these people. And he told us, he goes, for 3 or 4 weeks, I didn't have any business. But what you do is you get some old lady to hire you. And if he goes, the number one thing is customer service. You cut that yard like it's your yard. He said, and then what happens, these old ladies will tell their friends, other old ladies, pretty soon you got 40 people hiring you to, and you're making good money. Within like a year, he went from cutting grass by himself to he had 4 crews working for him. If you ever see these guys go by, they get up early in the morning, and they have a truck with a big long trailers jammed full of lawn cutting equipment. And as a matter of fact, one lady hired him. She lived on a lake, and she wanted to have a little swimming beach, and there were weeds. She hired him. She called him. She goes, how much will you charge me to pull the weeds out of my lake? He goes, $20 an hour. And she goes, hired. You know what he did? He hired another friend of mine. This friend of mine, he paid him $10 an hour to pull the weeds out of the lake. Do the math. He's charging the old lady $20 an hour. He's paying my friend $10 an hour. My friend, now this was a long time ago when minimum wage was like $6.75 an hour. My friend was so excited that he was making $10 an hour, and the other guy was making $10 an hour for doing nothing. So I kind of respect these. Ever since I heard that story, I respect these people that cut these yards. I am not going to do it. So anyway, all right. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write this down. Copy this chart down. If you remember when we did demand, the list of prices and amounts is called a demand schedule. And you have to talk to everybody in the market. This is a supply schedule. Okay? And so let's say you own a lawnmower and you are willing to mow lawns. I would really love to be doing this lesson in class rather than online, because kids give me all these silly questions. They're not silly, I'm sorry, they're good ones. So kids always say, how big is the lawn? And let me go ahead and let you copy the prices down. Okay? So I want you to actually fill this chart out. And to make this meaningful, kids always say, how big is the lawn? If you can imagine, now I'm assuming you're sitting in the auditorium, because they told me they didn't think they were going to be able to get a sub. Imagine that this yard is the same size as my classroom. Okay? It's the same size as my classroom, so it's not a very big yard. So I want you to write down how many yards you would cut for $1 an hour. I'm sorry, $1 a lawn, not an hour. I'm assuming the answer is 0. But anyway, I want you to pause this film and actually go through. And first off, I'm not going to see your paper, right? But I want you to actually write down what you would do. Okay, so pause it and do that. And once you're done, unpause it. Now I'm just going to keep talking because you're supposed to. So if you're going to pause it now. Okay, I'm assuming you guys have the chart filled out. And if you were to graph it, we're not going to graph it. If you remember now, I'm doing this thing with my hands. We did the demand curve. The graph came down to the right. The curve came down to the right. That's a demand curve. If you were to actually graph these numbers, I'm just going to tell you, I wouldn't cut any yards for $1. I wouldn't do any for $5 unless I was really starving. $20? My classroom is not very big. I would start cutting them for $20. $50? Oh, baby. That's where you start skipping your lunch. Because you could cut 2 of those yards in an hour. That means if you were getting paid $50 an hour, $50 a yard, you could do 2 of those lawns in an hour. That's $100 for lunch. How many yards would you cut for $100 an hour? That's where you get one of those headlamps. You know, you've heard me reference my camping hobbies. I have probably thousands of dollars worth of camping gear. And when I first started camping, I got in trouble several times. I almost died several times. I've been rescued by the Coast Guard in my life. I've been telling the kids 3 years. I really think I've been rescued 4 times by the Coast Guard. But what happened was I got in a close call on one of my kayaking trips and managed to get rescued by the Coast Guard. And so, so I told my wife I would join a kayak club. And so, which I know sounds all geeky stuff. I don't care what you think. I probably wouldn't like your hobbies either. But the deal is, I would go on these camping trips, and these people had all this camping gear, and the most useful piece of camping gear is the headlamp, like the coal miners used to wear. Because when you're cooking after dark, you're heating something up on the fire. Let's say you're making steak or you're, doing something. If you look away, something's going to jump in that pan like a fly, a bug, a rattlesnake, a spider, and you're going to wind up eating that, which if you think about it, is just extra protein, right? But the deal is the headlamp became the most useful part of my camping gear because after dark, it's very helpful. I'm telling you what, if they were going to pay me $1,000 a lawn, we're talking about quitting my teaching job and working, 12 hours, a day, cutting 15 hours a day, working after dark. Those little things that you wear on your back that have water in them. I'd load it up with coffee and keep, I'd stay up, man. I'd do this for like a couple months. And if I didn't die of a heart attack or something, I'd retire. So here's what, if you were to graph this, here's what it would look like. Now, I hope this comes out right on the video because, sometimes it reverses. So this is a demand curve. So here is your, I'm just going to draw it. Here's your graph like this. The demand curve comes down to the right. If you were to graph this, it starts at the bottom left and shifts up to the right. So one goes down to the right. That is the demand curve. The supply curve goes up to the right. All right, so this is your supply schedule. All right, so we're done with that. Let's do some examples here now. I just want you to understand this. We're not actually going to graph this, okay? All right, so let's say that you had a country and people like to eat cereal, okay? And so let's say there's 5 different cereal companies. I believe, and remember I have a background in business, although it's very rusty now. I've been a history teacher now this is my 31st year as a public school teacher. But I believe there are 3 cereal manufacturers in the United States. I'm not including generic cereal like Publix brand or whatever. There's Post, there's General Mills, and dang if I can remember the other one. But there's 3 big cereal manufacturers. And so if you went and talked to all of them, they would say, you would ask them, how many boxes of cereal would you sell for $5 a box? And they came up with 50. Do not be confused. That could be 50,000, 50 million, 50 billion. Doesn't matter. It's just a number. At $4, they would sell 40. Notice as the price go down, they're making left. Because what businesses are trying to do are make a profit, right? They got to pay the electric bill. They got to pay their employees. A lot of kids don't understand that. They think businesses will just do anything you tell them at any price. No, because they're losing money. Why would you run a business that loses money? If they don't make money, they should go the way of the dinosaur. And don't even get me started on manatees. But anyway, so the deal is, this is the supply curve. This is the supply schedule now. I'm going to click, I hope. And this thing is just going to drop out here on the screen. Okay, there is a supply curve, right? Boom. Now, I think what's going to happen here, I should have looked at this lecture before I turned the recorder on. I think what's about to happen is there's going to be some scenario happen, but that is a supply curve. Notice it shifts upward to the right. Demand curve's coming down to the right, supply shifting up to the right. Let me see, I think they're going to have some kind of scenario. We're going to skip that. I don't know what that's even doing in here. All right, now, what if all of a sudden, instead of having 3 cereal manufacturers, 2 more start up? There's more companies out there willing to make cereal. So now every one of those prices, your supply schedule is now inaccurate. Your supply schedule, which is the basis for your supply curve, is now inaccurate. So what you have to do is you have to get new numbers and regraph it. Okay, so let me see. This is a very well, I didn't write this PowerPoint. A friend of mine gave it to me. So those numbers on the left there are now wrong. They are incorrect. So here are the new numbers. Now, so for every single price, the quantity supplied is going to go up. So I'm just going to tell you the answer to this is, what happens to that curve? The supply curve goes up. Now here is the question. Is that going up? Is that a shift to the right or a shift to the left? Here is the key way to figure out which way things go. If people are going to be selling more, always look at the quantity at the bottom. So the quantity at the bottom increases as you go to the right. So if demand shifts to the right, the quantity is increasing. If supply shifts to the right, the quantity is increasing. So because these numbers on the left get bigger, this entire curve is going to shift to the right. This is very important. If you do not understand this, you are not going to pass this AP Macro exam. An increase in supply is a shift to the right, which looks very much like a shift almost downward. Okay, let me see what happens here when I click. Nothing. Come on. There you go. That is an increase in supply. Okay. All right, we're going to do a few more of these. Increase in supply. Very good. Prices didn't change, but there's more cereal produced. All right, what if a drought restores the wheat and corn crops? Now, the corn and wheat crops. Just so you know, there's 3 things I think cereal's made out of. Corn, wheat, and oats, like oatmeal. My favorite kind of cereal, well, I don't know, I like that Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Fattening, of course, is oatmeal cereal. And so you've got like corn pops, and you've got frosted mini wheats, but there's like 3 input items that go into raw materials that go into cereal. What if a drought kills the corn and the wheat crops? Now here's the thing. You're going to have to graph the answer to this, but you also need to understand it in case it's a multiple choice question. So just think about this. Businesses are saying, okay, at this price, we'll make this much cereal, right? If businesses buy their corn and wheat from the farmers. If there's a drought that kills the corn and the wheat, or if there's going to be less corn and wheat, are the farmers going to charge more for their product or less? Well, of course, they're going to charge more. So what do the cereal companies, if they want to make a profit, what are they going to do with the price of the cereal? They are going to increase it. And basically, at all those prices that they had before, they're now no longer willing to sell that cheaply. So let me click here. So here's the original numbers again. So I'm going to click. These numbers are wrong because there's a drought. And so what's going to happen is they're no longer, before they'd sell 50 million boxes at $5. But now they're like, hey, we're losing money. There's only enough of us that'll make 30 million. Once we graph that, this is not going to be an increase in supply. This is going to be a decrease in supply. And this curve is going to shift to the left. And there you have it. All right, decrease in supply. I don't know. What if they find a quicker way to make cereal? Let's go through this quickly. If they find a quicker way to make cereal, cereal is made by human beings running machines. And you pay people by the hour. So if you're paying someone, a really good cereal maker, $40 an hour, if they can make more cereal, the price of the cereal gets cheaper. And so that would be an increase in supply. All right, so let's talk about shifters. 5 factors that may change supply, change in input prices. So if you're making cars and the number one ingredient, the number one thing that raw material that goes to make cars is steel. If steel goes up, that's going to be a decrease in supply. Conversely, if steel goes down, that is going to be an increase in supply. So I'm just going to go through these. That's a change in input prices. Change in the price of related goods or services. I don't want to explain that one. I'm not going to put that one on the test. Changes in technology. This is major. So what happens is, sometimes they use really dumb examples. Like, I might say this for Friday's essays. Let's say we're talking about the car industry. If they invented a drug, I really should stay away from drug references. If they invented a drug or a shot that would allow people to get only 2 hours of sleep a night and still be effective workers, what would happen? Well, you'd get more work done. People would be more energetic, increase in supply. What if you came up with a faster computer, increase in supply, you'd get more done. Changes in expectations. Again, I'm going to leave that one alone. Change in the number of producers. We've already done that. If you have more cereal companies, here's one that shows up on the exam, I think. If you have 10 pizza parlors in a town, you've got a supply schedule. This price for pizza, this is how much they will make. All of a sudden, 4 new restaurants are built. If 4 new restaurants are built, there's more pizza companies willing to make pizza at each price. That is an increase in supply, a shift to the right. And what's the next thing? I'm really getting tired here. It is 11:20. Tell you what I'm going to do. We basically did this. I'm going to just, let me see it. How much do we have here? I think we are just about done with supply. I'm going to let you write this stuff down. The only thing I want to point out is a subsidy. Most of you know what a tax is. So here's what happens, and this is also something you need to know, right? Just to be a functioning, economically literate voter. If the government increase, remember people that buy stock invest in a business. And that business wants to give those people a percentage of their money back as much as they can. So what happens is if the government comes along and says, okay, businesses, we don't think you're paying enough taxes. We're going to raise your taxes 20%. They raise their taxes 20%. That's 20% less profit going to the stockholders. So what are they probably going to do with the prices of their product they're selling? They're probably going to raise it 20%. Okay? Which would be a decrease in supply. Now, stay with me here. That's for a tax. You should have learned this in AP Government. A subsidy is when the government gives businesses money. They do this a lot with solar panels. I'm assuming with Biden becoming president and AOC and Bernie Sanders and all these people, giving him advice, that he's going to really heavily subsidize green technology like Tesla. Hey, to keep the planet from overheating, let's tell Tesla we'll give them $5,000 off their taxes for every car they sell or something. That is a subsidy. So the government, it's the opposite of a tax. The government is giving money to companies, and that would cause them to be willing to sell their products at a cheaper price. That would be an increase in supply. And I believe, people, at this point, I am going to call it a night, and I hope you got plenty of notes, and I will see you on Wednesday.